Section 6 has 3 upcoming characters that we are still waiting on: Miyabi, Yanagi, and Harumasa. And while we don't hear much about them for now, they did make an appearance in the game, giving us quite a lot of information about them. And this is where things gets interesting. We know what elements they all 3 are already, or at least have an idea. And we even saw some of Yanagi and Harumasa's skills in the game, which I will be showing in this video a bit later. But before we continue, just be aware that everything in this video is not yet confirmed, but mostly speculation going from what we have seen so far. Let's start with Yanagi. If you followed and paid attention to the conversation in the game when you meet Section 6 for the first time, Yanagi says that she is the Deputy Chief of Section 6. What this means is, she is second in charge when the chief is not around or available. Now this is quite a high rank in my opinion, which means she is highly likely to be a S-rank character in the future. So what element is Yanagi then? Well, I did a lot of testing in the game with both Yanagi and Harumasa when you do a mission with them as your teammates. And when you look at this, you will immediately know which element she is. As you can see, Yanagi uses a Naginata weapon and she is doing electric damage. Now this is one of her attacks that we know, and there is one more other than this one, which you might have missed. Here's her second skill. The second skill seems pretty awesome, and it seems like she charges back and forth and then summons an electric field on the ground that does AoE damage. Now I have no idea if this is from her skills, basic attacks or even ultimate. But to trigger this in the game you have to do a chain attack, and for the other attack I showed first, where she just attacks with her weapon multiple times, you have to use a skill attack. Interesting enough, when I used my ultimate, it didn't trigger any of her attacks. But back to Yanagi, the only thing we don't know much about her is which role she will be. It is very hard to say at this point, but her damage number seems pretty high when I compared it to Harumasa's, so maybe she is a damage dealer of some sort. But speaking of Harumasa, let's have a look at him too. Harumasa uses a bow as a weapon, which I think is pretty cool, but I am quite concerned that he might actually be a support role character. And when you listen to his voice lines and see some of his attacks, you might understand better why I am saying this. Here's his first skill. As you can see, Harumasa is also electric damage just like Yanagi, and he seems to place explosive traps on the ground, and when he shoots it with his bow, it explodes. I tried attacking it with my own characters, but it doesn't trigger these explosion devices. But back to why I think Harumasa is a support. If you listen closely to when Harumasa attacks, he says,
"Don't worry, I'm terribly weak. Combat isn't my thing."
"Combat isn't my thing." This makes me wonder if he might be a support character, and of course I might be wrong on this one. And it could just be his personality or something regarding lore in the game. But let's have a look at his second skill. For his second skill, he shoots a volley of arrows and places even more explosive traps on the ground. He only shoots one arrow afterwards to trigger one of the explosions, much like the first skill. I wonder if you can trigger these explosions with other characters in your squad once he releases into the game. And if that is the case, he definitely has some off-field damage and support stuff in his skill set, much like Rina has right now. As for Harumasa's rank, I'm thinking he will probably be a A rank, because we already have Miyabi as the chief of Section 6 and Yanagi as the deputy chief, which makes them the two highest ranks in the story for Section 6. They could surprise us though and give us 3 S ranks in one faction, something that we haven't seen yet in Zenless Zone 0. Next we have Miyabi. Miyabi was in the first closed beta test, so we have already seen her skills and what she can do. But just keep in mind that this was a year ago, so they might have changed her a bit by now. Miyabi uses a sword as her weapon, and she also has this ghost following her around, which also seems to play a role with her skills charging up her weapon. One really interesting thing about Miyabi that I have heard of is that she was so popular in the first closed beta test, the devs didn't get enough info of the other characters, so they had to remove Miyabi from the other closed beta test, which is pretty funny. I also think this is why Miyabi isn't part of the standard banner, because the devs knows just how popular she is, so they have decided to give her a rate up banner in the future. The only problem that is unknown to me about Miyabi right now is, in the first closed beta test there wasn't any roles in the game yet. What this means is we have no confirmation on what Miyabi's role will be, but what we do know about her is that she is of the ice element. This gives me the idea that we won't see Miyabi for a while, since we just got Alan Joe as our rate up banner in the game, which is also doing ice damage, and that means they might stall for a bit before we get to pull for another ice damage character. Which for me as a free-to-play player is good news, because it gives us more time to save up some more pulls for her. Let me know what you think of Section 6 in the comments down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.